Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, and a good morning, everyone. Tomorrow, we do have Heroes Breakfast. If you are a veteran, tomorrow morning, as we broadcast live from Scramblers, you're going to get free breakfast thanks to Delta Roofing, Serenity Honors, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and, of course, Scramblers, our good friends over there. All you got to do, once again, is just come by. We'll be broadcasting 6A to 9A. That Friday Road Show always is sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. We have Author of the Week today, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And I believe Christy Fulnecki is going to be joining us. I don't know otherwise. Last week, having been in the Dominican Republic doing the show there for The Great Escape, skipping that week of it, then I was just talking aloud before the show, and I said, I don't think Christy said she wasn't going to be here afterwards, but we'll find out. We'll find out. The continued, as many of you are obviously fully aware, it's difficult to avoid, the observations of the growing anti-Semitism. I don't even know if people really truly recognize how bad it. I think there is still this level of denial as to what is actually going on. Benjamin Netanyahu has addressed this. And I want to play that audio coming up. And what's sad is Benjamin Netanyahu, and specifically what's going on in the United States. He, like so many others, are sounding the alarms that the United States is becoming Germany 1938. We're hearing this from Jewish scholars. We're hearing this from historians. We're hearing this from survivors of the Holocaust. And I think what happens is that even amongst the population that realizes how bad things have gotten with these left-wing activists and the anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party, there's still this sense of, well, but it's different than Germany 1938 in terms of the attitude. Now, obviously, we don't have concentration camps. There are differences there. And that's part of the reason that we detach ourselves from the evil, if you will, or think that the evil that we're seeing is somehow different than the evil of the socialists of Germany or the Nazis and what they did to the Jews. But the motivation is the same. The evil is the same. The emotion of the people that you see on these campuses calling for genocide, calling for the elimination of the Jews, calling for intifada. It's the exact same emotion. It's carbon copy. It's the same thing that those who pushed forward with the final solution in Germany were feeling. It's no different. It's almost as if those are movies in our mind, and even though we have people here, the Hitler Youth. I mean, it is today's Hitler Youth in the United States of America. And the entire world is watching today's Hitler Youth. And as you have this being recognized, even a number of networks like MSNBC, left-wing networks, to some degree, are beginning to at least acknowledge what is going on. In the beginning, I think there was an attempt to really try and downplay this, to make it seem as if it isn't that big of a problem, or that it's, soften it a bit. Well, it's just about the plight of the Palestinians. And as these individuals are very vocally saying, no, we're Hamas. We are Hamas. It's becoming more and more difficult for the left to cover for them. And some are, and I think it's genuine. I think there are some Democrats that are waking up and realizing that what they've been told is the reason that right-wing people are scary in this country. Actually, it's their party that houses these individuals. It is their party that is reliant on these individuals for votes, which is one of the reasons, of course, that the White House has been very subdued in their reaction to this anti-Semitism. And any sort of statement that they finally feel as if they have to make, and Joe Biden did this when he was asked about it. Of course I'm against anti-Semitism, but I'm also against people who don't understand why the anti-Semites are upset. This need to, while being forced to condemn the Hitler Youth of today, immediately then shifts and focuses to the target of Hitler Youth to make sure that the Hitler Youth understands that, hey, I get it. I'm going to condemn the people that you're against too. And this is because of the reliance or the need for the support of these individuals. The comments that were made, and I'll play them for you coming up here in a couple moments, just a couple minutes long, of Benjamin Netanyahu addressing essentially the world about America becoming Germany 1938. The things that he said are things that the President of the United States should be saying. And it is a horrifically sad reflection that the President of the United States is not the one standing up and saying what it is that Benjamin Netanyahu is saying. You know, all of the never forget and the United Nations itself. Of course, there was the attempt, the idea of the League of Nations, Woodrow Wilson. But it wasn't really until the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust that collectively the world, that was that triggering point of, oh yes, we need a United Nations in order to prevent these horrific things from happening again. And the fact that it's in the United States that it's happening. And the rather indifference. There was an article in Politico in which the Biden campaign's position, not their official position, but this was interviews they do with Politico, was, oh, this probably isn't going to affect the campaign, so we're not worried about it. They're not worried about it? Because they don't believe it's going to affect the campaign? They're not worried about anti-Semitism? It is going to take, for, I believe, any meaningful action, under this administration anyhow, to occur, Jews being flat out murdered. The question is how many? And that is a horrific reality. But so far, what we're seeing isn't enough for this administration to do anything. Has there been any address? Where has Biden come out, had any sort of official press conference to condemn this, to say this is wrong, this is unacceptable, to tell these universities I'm going to take executive action to cut off funding to these universities because, until this is no longer a problem? Yesterday there was a Hamas who is on these campuses by their own declaration, released a video of a hostage, an American hostage, who's lost one of his arms. The last 24, 48 hours, you look at what's going on in this country, once upon a time in this country, if there was a video of an American hostage released, this country would have stood still. I bet the vast majority of Americans don't even know that happened. And the people who are responsible for that hostage, as well as numerous other American hostages who released that video, are openly on our college campuses. And our president of the United States does not even address this in a meaningful way. But, Donald Trump is scary. Oh, okay, yes. Thank goodness Donald Trump isn't president. Can you imagine how awful things would be in this country? Weather in just a moment. Now the latest news update. The first alert forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Showers and thunderstorms expected throughout the day. A high today of only 58, so we're pretty much there in terms of temperatures. Overnight, showers, storms possible down to 54, pretty steady. 80% chance of rain continuing throughout tomorrow. Bit warmer with a high of 72, and then sunny, 81 on Saturday. If you have car care needs, you also have A1 Custom Car Care. That's what you need. The good folks at A1 Custom Car Care for all car care needs, now including full service on tires. You don't have to go to a separate place. I know so many of us become accustomed to that because your go-to mechanic, maybe they'll plug a hole on a tire or something. But when it comes to getting the new tires and the installation and everything, well, we don't do that. A1 Custom Car Care now fully does that at all of their locations, so you need no longer go to two separate locations, two separate stops. Next time you're getting that check engine light or oil change, or that's, the thing about tires is it's not like, bam, overnight, all of a sudden, unless one blows out, you need a new one. But when it comes to just upgrading because you need over time, you can time that out, most likely, or any other sort of routine maintenance. So saves you time, saves you money. A1 Custom Car Care for all of your car care needs. This is Benjamin Netanyahu with a public address, essentially to the world.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians. Yet it is Israel that is falsely accused of genocide, Israel that is falsely accused of starvation and all sundry war crimes. It's all one big libel, but that's not new. We've seen in history that anti-Semitic attacks were always preceded by vilification and slander. Lies that were cast against the Jewish people that are unbelievable, yet people believed them. And what is important now is for all of us who are interested and cherish our values and our civilization, to stand up together and to say enough is enough. We have to stop anti-Semitism because anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. It always precedes larger conflagrations that engulf the entire world. So I ask all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, who are concerned with our common future and our common values, to do one thing: stand up, speak up, be counted. Stop anti-Semitism now.
Now, this is an address, and those are words that should be spoken by the President of the United States, particularly given right now we are the hotbed of this activity outside of Gaza itself. The marketing center of the world right now for Hamas's messaging is in the United States of America. The megaphones of anti-Semitism, the Goebbels-style propaganda, the Hitler Youth of today on this planet is coming from the United States of America, specifically university campuses. People would oftentimes, just over the years, I always found it humorous. It's a lack of recognition of history and political ideology when people would equate conservatives to Nazis, not realizing that the Nazi Party was the Socialist Party of Germany. Is it any surprise? It's not a coincidence that the geographical pockets across this country where culturally that same political ideology, socialism, is espoused, is ingrained in young people as a wonderful ideology that we're once again seeing anti-Semitism. Are we really going to tell ourselves that that's some sort of coincidence? That when you promote the idea of socialism, when you promote the idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, that there are good people and bad people, that's the same, and Netanyahu touched on it there, the demonization of Jews. Blaming Jews for the problems. The Jews are the oppressors. They were the economic oppressors. That was the big selling point to turn the people against them by the socialists in Germany. Well, what do we hear today? Jews are once again the oppressors. This is what has fueled the anti-Semitism that instead of being in Germany in the 30s is in the United States of America today. The motivation is the same. A hatred for the Jewish people. And it's not, this is another misunderstanding. This isn't even about Israel, other than the fact that Israel is a Jewish state. This is ultimately about the Jews. If Israel did not exist, this would still be a problem because of the hatred for the Jews, the blaming of the problems on the Jews, the Jews being the oppressors. In socialist Germany, they were the oppressors, they were the economic oppressors. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, has indoctrinated young people into believing that once again, here we have the Jews, they're the oppressors. So they must be eliminated. It is the same, it's not a similar mindset to Germany 1930s. It's the same. And as Netanyahu pointed out, much of it stemmed from the college campuses in Germany. Hank texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Mao used students to overthrow democratic Chinese government. Mullahs used students to overthrow democratic Shah of Iran. People say history repeats itself. I say people repeat history. The point being the same. I mean, we've seen this over and over and over again. And part of what once upon a time made this country different was that we prided ourselves, rightfully so, on recognizing that and being a different people who believed that people are people. People are not categories. People are not oppressors by the very nature of whatever category they're in. People are not victims by the very category they're in. We're a big melting pot, regardless of your background, race, creed, color, whatever. We're all culturally Americans, freedom, liberty, God-given rights. That understanding, that belief is what, for a period of time, didn't make us immune, but made us seemingly immune from these sorts of problems. But we have seen, and just as, again, Germany in the 30s, and there have been numerous other examples throughout time, you have forces, you have people, and it's evil, that decide otherwise. And they use, oftentimes, people who think that they're doing good. I don't believe everyone, I mean, you know, you've got it at MSU, you have it at Jury, you've got it in the school districts all around here pushing this DEI ideology of oppressors and oppressed that fuels this, that's the foundation for all this hatred. I'm sure probably most of them don't, that's not their intent. They've been indoctrinated to believe, no, this is a good thing. But the fact of the matter is, most people who get involved in evil movements think they're doing the right thing, think they're doing the noble thing. That's why they're doing it. Or they just go along, the banality of evil, going back to Germany in the 30s. I'm going to take a break, more ahead. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. In addition to tomorrow being a Heroes Breakfast, free breakfast for veterans at Scramblers, 10 a.m. at KSGF.com tomorrow. Local for Less Ozarks, you can get a $50 gift certificate to Scramblers for just $25. That, again, will be 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm sure those will go fast. Also at KSGF.com, Casting Crowns, Black Oak Amphitheater performance, Thursday, September 12th. Special guest, Katie Nicole, and you can win a pair of tickets for that also, or at least attempt to, by registering at KSGF.com. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Colorton Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Showers, thunderstorms throughout the day. Today high of 58. Shower storms possible tonight, 54 for a low. And an 80% chance of rain throughout the day tomorrow, high near 72. 81 on Saturday. Tomorrow, of course, again, we've got the Friday Road Show sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. And I believe Emily Johnson will be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour, barring any sort of closing on a home, because, of course, you are her number one priority if, in fact, you are utilizing her in order to buy or sell a home. But when she's able to, she joins us out there so that she can be a benefit to you using these airwaves, reach as many of you as possible with information that might be helpful to you. And oftentimes, this you may notice at times that she'll say, hey, if anybody has a home, maybe you're thinking of selling it, and it fits this criteria, I've got buyers looking for you. Now, think about that for a moment. If you have ever tried to sell your home, was your realtor ever, or you were looking for one specifically, more importantly, was your realtor able to just in 30 to 60 seconds reach thousands and thousands of people with that for you? Probably not. But that's what you get with Emily Johnson. House Theory Realty, all of your home buying and selling needs. And again, she'll be on in the 8 o'clock hour. So if you do have any questions, want to meet her, say hi, you can stop by Scramblers tomorrow morning between about 8 and 8:15 is when she is with us. There was a text that came in regarding just what we continue to see with the rise of anti-Semitism, and that the United States is becoming to the world what so many of these Middle Eastern countries have become, and Germany in the 30s, and that is hotbed for anti-Semitism. A text on the Pyramid Roofing Company Talk and Text line. I find it ironic Speaker Johnson is calling for leadership changes at Columbia. Does he think anything will change? Kind of like when we change speakers, no difference. So Speaker Johnson shows up at Columbia, and I got to tell you, this is just my personal emotional reaction. It was even more than an eye roll for me. I was just like, shut up. And for a couple of reasons. I'm just giving you the unvarnished emotional reaction that I had seeing him up there. One, I am disgusted with the guy. I feel he is not a person of his word. He's dishonest. The things that he had been claiming that he would do before he became speaker, and even after he became speaker, he did a complete about-face on. Particularly when it comes to requiring any sort of taxpayer dollars that are going to go to secure Ukraine's border, that he would, as Speaker of the House, make sure that our border was made secure first. And not only did that not happen, but he threw in was an extra $4 billion in order to help facilitate illegal immigration into this country as part of that deal. This is why Democrats were all celebrating. So admittedly, I already think the guy, he's bad. He's a bad person. He's a great politician. That's why people like Paul Ryan are out there really, he finally got his voice, Paul Ryan says. Who, of course, was another speaker that as a Republican betrayed, I don't know if he betrayed himself, but what he said that he was, what he got elected on, what he raised money on, once he actually got power, he did the opposite. Of course, he's not the only one. So to have him praising Mike Johnson is pretty appropriate. Then he gets up there, and to me, it just seemed so patently pandering. My instinct is he realizes he's in trouble with, the conservatives and he turned off. Where's that article? Let's see, what account was it? One of his social media accounts, his Instagram. He turned off Instagram mentions after Ukraine aid backlash. He turned off his Instagram mentions on his official government account after social media uproar over his passage of Ukraine aid. Instagram users can no longer mention the leader of the so-called People's House and post on the popular app, a change that limits users' ability to engage with Johnson's official account. So he knows. This is his it's essentially virtue signaling, in my opinion, for the purpose of trying to win back those that he has betrayed. Like, oh, look at me. See? Don't forget, I'm not anti-Semitic. He's doing what I believe to be the absolute bare minimum. Not to mention, it's just like, who cares? To me, it was for Mike Johnson. So I'm just a little bit disgusted by the whole thing. Aside from that, the point, or one of the points being made, calling for the resignation of the head of Columbia, and while that may very well be warranted, that's not ultimately the problem here. When there were numerous Americans celebrating because of the firing and or resignation of some of those university heads because of the testimony in Congress, where they were, asked, hey, your code of conduct on campus, what about, calling for Jews to be eliminated? And they're like, well, depends on the context. And so there, of course, I think that was shocking to a lot of Americans to hear such a blasé attitude about Hitler Youth and the acceptance of Hitler Youth. And there was a degree of celebration when a couple, I think one resigned, maybe one was let go. I forget the exact circumstances. But if you understand the problem, you understand that, and that's nothing. It's like having a motorcycle gang. That's a bad one. And something happens to the leader of the gang. Thinking that means that the gang all of a sudden is no longer going to be a bad gang. No, there's going to be a new leader in there that is reflective of the culture of the gang. It is naive and foolish to believe, and I know many of you know this, but this is the presentation, and this is so elite. This is such a Washington, D.C. political elite approach. Do something similar. Well, they go get rid of that person. Okay, but that doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't mean that it's a step that shouldn't be taken, but to portray that as somehow meaningful in reversing the course that we're currently on. Unfortunately, that reality, of course, is reflective of the fact that this is a problem that is not, it would be great if that were the fix. Joe, just fire that person. That takes care of it all. Nope. The people who are responsible for fueling this hatred, by instilling in the minds of all of these people this belief that there are oppressors and there are oppressed, that is what fuels their decision here that the Jews are bad. They have been working at this for a very, very, very long time. This is something that they have been deliberately, actively working on for a very, very long time. You do not end up with DEI being taught in tens or hundreds of thousands of schools in one capacity or another across this country, and universities all across this country, even having, I think even Springfield has, a diversity, equity, inclusion director or something, some position. You don't have this evil ideology crafted into official positions and official policy without a lot of very dedicated and hard work being put into it over a very, very long period of time. And these are the results. These are the crops. After the seeds have been planted, everything's been cultivated, a great deal of time and effort has been put in, and what you are seeing the plentiful crops across this country on college campuses. What further makes this a difficult problem to fix is that the vast majority of people who are supportive of the ideology that fuels this will absolutely refuse to believe that it is that ideology that fuels it. And it isn't to say that every single person who believes in the virtues of categorizing people as oppressors and oppressed, also are anti-Semitic and hate Jews. But it does mean that the people who are anti-Semitic and hate the Jews and see them as oppressors are fueled by the ideology of DEI. And there will be an absolute refusal to acknowledge that. And you know what they say about fixing a problem that you have as a culture or as an individual? The first is identifying and admitting it. And I can guarantee you that ain't going to happen. Certainly not in any easy fashion. And that's part of the difficulty of situations like this. It's not something that some firing or replacement or program or law is going to fix. It's similar to somebody that just spends years and years and years and years, beating their body up or making poor financial decisions. Oftentimes, the longer you sow the seeds of those problems, the more difficult it is to get out. And this is just where we are. I know that's not a fun answer, and it's not an easy answer. I think it's a realistic answer. It's also, again, part of the reason it's just so patently absurd to have Johnson or, any of these people, well, that person needs to be fired. Okay, again, yeah, maybe. But that is not addressing the real problem here. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Red, Red State Speaker Mike Johnson speaks to encampment students. Go back to class and stop this nonsense. When asked by a reporter what his message was to the hundreds of self-proclaimed Hamas members, my message to students inside the encampment is go back to class, stop this nonsense. Can I also say I feel as if maybe Johnson, he's clearly not the only one, is downplaying this a little bit. This is not nonsense. This is evil. Nonsense? Oh, like they're just a bunch of kids that, they're protesting because, they want Pizza Friday bought back in the cafeteria. You guys just cut out this nonsense. Nonsense? Calling for the destruction of Israel is nonsense? This isn't too far off, frankly, from Ilhan Omar referring to 9/11 as a thing that some people did. And I'm not saying that Johnson doesn't see this as something that is a serious problem. But it's just when these people talk about this stuff, it's as if it's in this, like they're reviewing a play or something. And it's not real. They don't really understand it. When people say, how is it that something like the Holocaust can happen? This is how it happens. It's this detachment from what's actually going on, a lack of recognition as to what evil is actually existing here. Nonsense. And this unwillingness to call out these people for what they themselves are declaring. These are not pro-Palestinians. These aren't even, supporters of Hamas. They are declaring we are Hamas. Well, I mean, they're not really Hamas. What? It's not as if Hamas, there's some membership that you pay dues and like, well, do you have a card? Okay, well, you're not officially Hamas. And like, Hamas is, it's an ideology of hatred. It is a belief system. And this attempt to downplay what is actually going on by even in the media. I mean, like I said, these people are if this were a different world, different situation, and these were individuals that saying we are the Klan, would the media refer to them as anything other than members of the Klan? Of course not. But here they are openly declaring themselves to be Hamas, yet I have yet to hear any media outlets refer to them as Hamas. I want to play some audio for you coming up also, because there is an attempt by a number of Democrats to say, well, this isn't really partisan. This isn't, we're tired of Republicans trying to pretend as if this is a Democrat problem. I'm going to play audio. I played on occasion when it's appropriate. When a resolution was submitted regarding Jerusalem and Israel during the Democratic National Convention of 2012, that next. Now, of course, many people are rightfully pointing out that finally the evil is surfacing here to where it is undeniable, and the years of trying to portray conservatives as Nazis has all been shattered. And there's a Red State story, didn't age well. Paul Krugman, strangely silent after calls to revisit his 2019 anti-Semitic brands tweet. And it's where, he talked about, he said it was a tweet, and it was talking about, anti-Semitism, and the brand is all, and he essentially saying that anytime you see it, clearly it's Trump supporters. And obviously that myth and disinformation has been shattered. 2012, Democratic National Convention. What wasn't televised on broadcast TV was nonetheless recorded. And this is what occurred when one Democrat submitted that Jerusalem be recognized as the capital of Israel.
President Obama recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and our party's platform should as well. Mr. Chairman, I have submitted my amendment in writing, and I believe it is being projected on the screen for the delegates to see. I move adoption of the amendment as submitted and shown to the delegates.
A motion has been made. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the matter requires a 2/3 vote in the affirmative. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the, let me do that again. All of those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. I guess
Let them do what they're going to do.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen.
That was 12 years ago. The Democratic National Convention, again, it was during the period of time where it doesn't get, full coverage because they're doing resolutions and so forth and platform adoptions. And what you had the you heard, it's about half of the delegates of the Democratic National Convention. Something that clearly the presider over the convention at that time was not expecting them to be so vocal about it. And as he didn't know what to do. You could hear. And somewhat, said, well, you got to let them do what they're going to do. Takes 2/3 of majority. Clearly, 2/3 of the majority were not in supportive of the resolution because there were at least half of those that were taking the anti-Semitic position, loudly so. But he went ahead anyhow, because this is how Democrats are, and said, oh, no, clearly, 2/3 have it, when they didn't, because they had to keep it quiet. But they're having a much more difficult time keeping the anti-Semitic wing of their party quiet now. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. Next hour, we do have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. We have the Friday Road Show tomorrow, sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. That is at Scramblers, where you can also get free breakfast if you are a veteran. Air Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, Delta Roofing, Serenity Honors, all. Sponsoring that along with Scramblers, also at KSGF.com at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Your chance at Local for Less Ozarks, which is at KSGF.com, to get a $50 gift certificate to Scramblers for only $25. And while you're there, you can also get registered to win a pair of tickets to see Casting Crowns in the Black Oak Amphitheater at the Black Oak Amphitheater with special guest Katie Nicole. That performance will be Thursday, September 12th. And now the latest news update. First Alert Forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox 49. Meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Showers, thunderstorms throughout the day. Today, high of 58. Showers, storms possible, 54 tonight. 80% chance of rain throughout the day tomorrow. High near 72, and Saturday, partly sunny. High of 81. Christy Fulnecki.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are
how's
you
it going there,
doing?
lady?
Yes, I had to get organized
Yes,
here.
I know.
I know. Oh, wow. I mean, really, in the news right now, you definitely need a law degree to keep up with what's going on in politics, right? I mean, it's so
all
crazy.
I know is it takes a lot of, I think.
Oh, man.
I think it takes a lot of focus and dedication, and dare I say character, to acknowledge when one was wrong. And, back whenever the last election was taking place and Biden supporters were talking about how, Biden would restore calm to the country and,
Yeah, right.
and the rest of the world would be calm and start to respect us. And I just didn't believe him. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, have you ever seen such peaceful times?
No, that's
Whether
right.
whether it's the economic security the average person is feeling, the Middle East, anti-Semitism on college campuses, reminiscent of Germany in the 30s. Thank goodness that horrible Donald Trump is no longer
know.
president of the
Well-
United States. I mean, man, it was so awful. It was so bad compared to now.
Something to talk about.
There's always some.
No, when it's going great, there's not much to talk about, and we don't have anybody to make fun of.
Meanwhile, the tent industry is doing great.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
I am telling you right now, if that is your child, you failed as a parent. That's all I have to say.
Well, unless the parents
mean-
are Hamas also, and then they succeeded, I suppose.
Well, yeah.
Like, we're so proud that you followed in our footsteps.
Understand why people are like, oh, well, they're an adult and, they're over 18. Really? Well, if you pay for everything and you're paying for that stupid college that they're doing the sit-in, I don't think you should be paying for anything else. I mean, you have every right, if you're still paying for your child, to give them an ultimatum, like, you get out of there or I'm not paying for anything.
There are a number of things that I just think are just fantastic about this. And 9/11, and we just can't ever. There was a 9/11 commission to make sure that we never miss the warning signs again. And that book was released, this report, 9/11 report. Where were the signs? You have on our college campuses members openly declaring, we are Hamas, we are going to destroy this country, and we can't even get they're most of which they're not even American citizens.
I know.
They're here on student visas. And the idea of saying maybe you shouldn't be here, like, well, no, we can't kick them out of the country. What more do we? I've just never seen a country that is asking to be destroyed. It just
I know.
I,
And did you see that one school official say something about, well, we don't need the police there on campus because they will, they'll upset the students, and then the students will get
well,
more violent.
you don't want to make the terrorists mad. Yeah,
About.
you don't want to escalate things. They're fine now. They're just camping. I imagine this time of the year. I wonder if there is a shortage.
$dollars a year to camp.
I wonder if there's.
You're wasting your money, I'm telling you what.
And to hate Jews.
Oh, yeah,
Don't
that's
forget
right,
that.
that's right.
Some people with camping, they like s'mores. Yeah.
Hate groups that are camping.
Some people it's s'mores and trail mix. For others, it's calling for the elimination of Jews. Hey, things
just need friends. That's what it is. They just need friends, and that's why they're doing this.
Things cycle. You get things that go out of fashion, they come back in fashion. Bell bottoms, high waisted jeans, Hitler Youth. It's been a while since the Hitler Youth was given its due. So
I know. Well, I do want to say something positive. Because there's a lot of negative. There's a big revival of college students going on. I don't know if you've noticed because everything has been
right.
But they're having like huge like stadiums full of college students that are getting saved and everything.
Yeah, but
my kids have been to some of those.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, let's be honest. If you ask this White House or the media, they're the scary students. They're the fundamentals. Those Christian nationalists. Those are the ones you need to worry about. Yeah. I mean, dunking themselves in water and all sorts of crazy stuff. They're waterboarding each other. Look at them.
That book of hate that they carry around.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where the real fear. Those are the oppressors. White Christians are the oppressors, according to the DEI matrix. Protestants and.
Where are we? Where are we living? I don't even understand.
This is why I look forward to lunch and dinner. That's why I'm always thinking about things like that.
What, food?
Yeah. Because it's just an escape. It's just this is nice.
Inflation.
Yeah. Well, there is that. It just gives me something to look forward to. I'm like, what am I going to... Sarah over here makes fun of me because I got all these food apps on my phone. That's my escape.
22.
I think it's not healthy.
I don't think so either.
You know what? If
bearing your feelings. I'm not a psychologist.
About you.
If I were being wheeled in here and there was a ramp because I couldn't get myself because I was 600 pounds, then I'd say okay. And I'm not claiming I'm a specimen of health over here, but I think I'm a decent balance. It's the emotional benefit I get from it. I've got some Joe Biden audio because, of course, coming up with Christy Fulnecki, I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Also, YouTube. You can watch us there. That's sponsored by Springfield Wraps, designer of the KSGF studio. Joe Biden yesterday doing what he's done this before, his Ron Burgundy
What, speak?
moment where he reads. So for people, if you've not seen the movie Ron Burgundy or the second one, Will Ferrell plays it takes place in the 70s, 80s, and he is a TV anchor, and he's, pretty obtuse, bit of an idiot. And I think I remember, I believe it was the first movie where somebody was screwing with him and they were putting all sorts of absurd things on the teleprompter, and he was just reading it. Because he's just reading what's in front of him, and it was, of course, to illustrate that he was an idiot. Well, Joe Biden has done that on numerous occasions. When things are put in parentheses like stop, wait for applause, he will say those things. And yesterday was, once again, one of those moments.
Folks, imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
So he said pause because they wanted him to pause. Well, the other part that's funny about it is they put pause in there so that they could, because it's obvious the crowd was, or at least some in the crowd were told ahead of, okay, he's going to say 4 more years, and then he's going to pause. So this, you need to start chanting 4 more years. So the whole thing's orchestrated. But but here's what I actually even think is funnier about it, and I'll play it again. He says it with dramatic intent. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like he said 4 more years, pause, and just rolled into it. He for dramatic effect, pauses before he says pause.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
4 more years, pause.
Maybe he thought they were all supposed to say pause instead of 4 more years.
It's a fool's errand to try and figure.
This is the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
I'm very confident right now.
Pause.
Oh my gosh.
And do these people have no dignity? 4 more years of and let's just talk about that.
Dementia?
So does that mean that the inflation, that we're going to have 4 more years of the inflation? What we've already had to deal with, more of that, the slashing of the buying power of our dollars, the slashing of retirement funds, the increase in pricing at the pump, the massive number of people coming across the border. Are these, is that 4 more years of like that?
Disaster?
We're doubling that?
Of disaster?
Doubling that? Is it this what we're, and these idiots behind them, yeah, we want 4 more years of that.
Well, they're as stupid as he is. I mean, you look and then they
Pause.
said there was some there was some story, and they were really serious about Biden is losing his lead because of Trump's trial, and I thought, why would he even have a lead? I mean, it's a dumpster fire.
Well, it's the same reason that
it's not even there cognitively, and then you say, who are these people? Something is wrong with them that he would even have a lead.
Well, look at the college campuses.
Well, yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah,
You've got tens of thousands across this country, and these are just the ones that are activated, of these anti-Semitic students that are out there calling for that. Those are the people. I mean, there are some others as well. It's obviously just
objectively, liberals really, with the indoctrination of the schools. I mean, I would guess you'd say it was a success.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and we talked in the last hour, this is the problem with this, firing some university president. That this is not in any way, shape, or form. This is a disease. It is a cancer. And the people who have been cultivating this hatred with programs like DEI, where there's the declaration of these are the oppressors, these are the oppressed, and pitting groups against one another, they have been at this very deliberately for a very, very, very long time. This is why they're in schools everywhere. They're in cities everywhere. Some companies, corporations have these, DEI divisions. And that we've just let it go on for a very, 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 it's like the difference between catching cancer early on versus when you're in stage 4. And we're in stage 4.
Yeah.
And that is not something that's easy to
But
overcome.
you have to think, I mean, I know that it happens on every campus, but these are, the Ivy Leagues plus the kind of, Midwest Ivy Leagues and that kind of thing. So the suburban mothers, I have children in other colleges. I really think that maybe that they voted for Obama, and I think this would really be
Should hope.
something that would change people that have traditionally voted for Democrats. Just seeing this lunacy.
Well,
This left wing extremist groups, hate groups, have taken control of the party. I mean, I think that this could really hurt them.
You would hope that when you have average people that maybe don't necessarily follow the day-to-day and get deep in to find out what's going on with each political party and the truth and things, that when you realize that the party you're voting for, if you are just a normal person who votes Democrat because you think that that's the best thing for you and your family or country, that when you realize that the Hitler Youth is on your side, that maybe
That's right. I know.
Maybe you should reconsider. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to all of a sudden vote Republican or vote at all for that matter. But if you're like, I wonder why it is that Hitler Youth is in my camp here. I wonder why it is that the president of the United States and the Democrat Party is catering to them, is dampering their criticism, because particularly in states like Michigan, they need the vote of these individuals, whether it's Hitler Youth or those that are older. And at some point, average Americans that vote for Democrats look at that and go, that makes me a little uncomfortable. Maybe I'll either sit this one out or look at alternate options.
And it's really going to be interesting. Let's see how Department of Justice is going to charge these people.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
I can't wait to follow this.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really gonna hold them. Yeah.
I can see what this is going to be.
Yeah, I suspect that
nothing will happen.
they're not going to get the old J6 treatment,
Yeah, I don't know if it'd take
calling for the elimination of Jews isn't nearly as bad as protesting at the Capitol. Chrissy Fulnecki with us. I got some more great audio in the next segment. I'm Nick Reed. Chrissy Fulnecki with us.
Yes.
It was a video of a woman yesterday having a meltdown at Los Angeles International Airport. Have you seen this? Now, Sarah, this is for you too.
fly out there in a couple weeks.
All right. Well, so this is and she's mad. I evidently, I don't know if she missed her flight or what the situation was, but she was very upset. And of course, when you have somebody that's very, very upset, then you have somebody filming the very upset person, and she is making while she is yelling at the people that are working there at the where you check in, you know, for your flight and everything. She consistently is making a demand to speak with a particular person. Pete Buttigieg. She wants to call you. You call Pete that MFer. Call Pete Buttigieg right now.
His phone right now. I'm sorry.
Now, how? And what's so funny about it is Pete Buttigieg's name is not known by this individual because he does such a stellar job. You know what I mean? It's not like people that he is so synonymous with being irrelevant or a screw up. Yeah, train wreck. Have you ever? I've never heard any just average person, call for the Department of Transportation secretary. Oh, get Pete Buttigieg down. Now, the other thing about it that's actually funny, and I don't even know how to describe it other than it's a sign of the times. At some point, somebody tells her, this isn't the Delta counter. And she says, it's not? And they're like, no, this is some other airline. And she starts to laugh. All of the workers for the other airline that were being yelled at, they all start laughing. Everyone just starts laughing, like, and they're like, yeah, this is not Delta. She was at the wrong terminal anyway, or ticket counter anyhow. But then they all just kind of laughed, and she joked with the person who was filming it about, well, will you guys take me to where I'm supposed to go? And they're all just laughing. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I suppose the upside is it diffused everything, but she went from this maniacally, it's probably drugs.
Mental illness.
But
kids go to Columbia.
The quote
kids are doing a sit-in right now.
Yeah, that's where she was trying to get. It's just flying to see her kids join them.
She's trying to get to Harvard.
I mean, reading the quotes are so funny, and of course, like oftentimes, and you're in the airport, so it's big and echoey. It's hard to hear. But one of the quotes from that audio, quote, "Call Pete Buttigieg right now, that useless MFer." That useless mother blanker. And incidentally, when you look at her, you don't look at her and think, oh, well, that's some sort of Karen Trump supporter. I don't know that you'd necessarily peg her one way or another. Yeah. But so for this person called
the Karen friend.
Right, yes. Call Pete Buttigieg right now, that useless mother blanker, she said. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com, all of your home loan needs and refinancing needs. It is a misconception, a common misconception, understandably so, to think there's absolutely no reason or upside financially to refinance. If you locked in loan rates at 3.75 or 4 and you're going to get double that, why would you do that? It's just going to cost you more. But depending on your situation and what other debts you may have, it doesn't have to be insurmountable. But there are circumstances in which you can actually come out ahead financially. That's something that the characters have detailed a couple of months ago. One particular a client of theirs that was in that situation, and they did, I think it was 2 point something even. It was just under 3% interest rate that this person was locked into, but had a couple of other debts. Again, nothing that was massive or, oh my gosh, we're going into bankruptcy, but just standard run-of-the-mill stuff. And even though the new financing was twice or even a little more than twice what they were currently at, they were still able to save them money. And I'm not talking just payments per month, but even long term. So that may not be the case for you, but the only way to find out is to reach out to them. And it doesn't cost a thing just to find out what your particular situation is when it comes to refinancing or home loans. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. The First Alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvement. Showers, thunderstorms throughout the day today, high of 58. Showers and storms possible, low around 52 tonight, an 80% chance of rain throughout the day tomorrow with a high near 72. And Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 81. Christy Fulnecki is with us.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, yes.
I was going to mention to you, I just received a text. Our author of the week, who's in studio, he got here early. I don't know if you want to let him in.
Yeah.
I thought I'd let you know so he doesn't have to sit out there all the time. You may be listening as we speak. So, we're gonna have a in studio author of the week. It is somebody that I've actually known this gentleman for. Gosh, I don't know, 7 years, somewhere around there anyhow. But it's going to be a nice uplifting one, I think. So we'll have that coming up.
That's good.
The media and the Democrats are mad because they feel that the NYPD is sympathetic and subtly supportive of Donald Trump as he goes through the lawfare that is being launched against him by Democrats in different jurisdictions across the country. And there's one story that New York Times outlined the police's favorable treatment of Trump, noting that Trump continues to receive favorable treatment from the New York City Police Department. For a week, a large NYPD dump truck has parked in the intersection of Hogan Place and Center Street with a uniformed driver sitting inside. Minutes before Trump arrives each morning, the dump truck has pulled a half-car length forward, blocking news photographer views of him entering the side door of the courthouse. And this afternoon, like those before it, the driver did the same maneuver for Trump's 2:37 departure. So, they're mad, of course, about this. But here's what I think a lot of people, particularly those that have Trump derangement syndrome, don't understand. See, they see this like, oh, well, of course, cops, they hate black people, and so does Trump or whatever. And, of course, those horrible cops are going to do this because they like Trump. I don't think it's so much about Trump, but particularly in New York City. This is a city, and they know Alvin Bragg, this prosecutor, very well.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they see the same criminals over and over again because he refuses to prosecute them or gives them a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
This is an individual that is known for taking dangerous felons and kicking down the charges to misdemeanors. There have been cops killed because of people like him that just allow these people back out on the street, and then they watch all of these resources being used to go after somebody that the entire thing is based off of what was the charge was a misdemeanor that expired years ago anyhow, and trying to bump it up into a felony. There's so many aspects of this. And so the police see this contradiction, that their lives are put in danger on a daily basis because of a soft on crime approach, but because of politics, they're doing everything they can in order to try to put this guy in prison. And so
for people, I mean, they know that how dangerous their job is because of the people, the political officials. But it's just like, that reminds me of when I was in DC a couple of days ago in the jail. And so, the J6ers are classified as terrorists, and they're so dangerous, and you have to go through all this, these levels and the security, and you have to like not take anything, which is frightening to me as an attorney. I can't have anything that identifies me with me. So I go in there and it kind of struck me. I thought, these people are so dangerous, but I'm literally walking around with a guard and my client doesn't even have handcuffs on. Like, hello. So, but literally, like, my client is the highest level terrorist in the United States right now. Him and a few other people that are still in the jail. And he does not have handcuffs. And I'm sitting right next to him, and we're all walking through the jail, and I thought, this does not make sense to me. That
It's all screwy, and
but the same thing. I mean, the U.S. Marshals have said, why are these people, especially
Right.
the ones that were just walking through the Capitol,
it's
all
because
these guys
justice is not blind.
And then, yeah, exactly.
Justice is not blind at all. And this is where, again, I think there's a misunderstanding as to the motivation of these cops. They think, oh, it's just because they're Trump supporters. And while I'm sure most of them
I'm
are,
sure
for
they are,
obvious reasons, that's not what's fueling this. It's the fact that on a daily basis, they see the problems that are created by these Soros, oftentimes paid for prosecutors, these left-wing Democrat prosecutors, and they facilitate the problems by being extremely soft and forgiving on crime, but then will do everything they can to get political opposition. And I'm sure that's infuriating when you are arresting the same people over and over again, when your life's put in danger, when you lose fellow officers because of prosecutors like this allowing these criminals back out on the street. I mean, just even that beatdown a few weeks ago that the illegals where they beat those police officers, and then they were just back out on the street again in 24 hours, and it's because of these sorts of prosecutors. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. Juxtapositioning again this unequal treatment. I mentioned there was a story yesterday. Wasn't West somewhere, I think in central South Missouri. There was a 12-year-old that was arrested for making terroristic threats because someone had called police saying that this kid had a gun at school or something. Well, it turned out that wasn't true. He didn't have a gun at school. Somehow, telephone game, I guess, misinformation ended up to law enforcement. But he had, I guess, posted a picture of somebody with a gun in a backpack or something to someone. And I don't even know, he may have said that he was going to bring it to school or whatever. But he didn't have a gun at school. Point being is, regardless of what he did, he's being charged with terrorism. Meanwhile, you have, again, students on campuses right now that are openly declaring themselves members of an officially declared terrorist organization.
Yeah, they're actually assaulting.
And they won't be charged with terrorism. But even the ones like this 12-year-old kid, he did not actually do anything. He didn't assault anyone. He didn't even have a gun at school. It was just the threat. Well, how then do you have all of these? Some of which are legally adults on the campuses that, again, Hamas is an official, the FBI recognizes, terrorist organization. They're saying we are Hamas. They're saying we are, kill the Jews, bring down America. And that they're like, well, as long as they don't, they stay in their little encampment and everything. It's total madness. And that outside of politics is once again why people have lost complete faith in our justice system, because it is totally out of whack, and it's random if you actually get justice in this country.
Yeah, you're talking about the perspective of police. I mentioned the marshals and even the FBI. I wonder, these FBI agents that now are hauling in, which I do want to mention that real fast, that are hauling in Americans still for the J6 event.
Oh yeah, they're still running.
I wonder, like, to make that call. How do you feel as a person that that this is just a political witch hunt? I mean, and you have to go and enforce this. And so I just got another consult yesterday. I won't even say where in Missouri, but she was terrified because she was interviewed by the FBI shortly after January 6th. And she said, now there's a warrant. I just found out there's a warrant. And her and her husband, they have kids, no criminal background.
She should have joined Hamas instead. She'd be much better off in this country.
She said, how can this happen? I said, I'm telling you, she said, is this really a thing? Like, can I go to, I said, yes, you can go to DC jail. I'm telling you, I represent other January 6 clients now. And I said, it's terrifying. Some of them, they let, depending on, they all have similar charges, but if they have a assault of a police officer, which half the time they don't even have evidence, or, like my one client moved the bike wreck over to walk through, something like that. If you have that, you're automatically going to DC jail. And I said, I don't really know your case, but don't assume you're going to be in court on Zoom. But you're going to be arrested. Like, if there's a warrant, and she said, how can this happen in our country?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know.
Right.
But all you have to know is that this is going to be your life now. And she's, and people don't realize this is happening every single day in our country.
I know. It's awful. And I'll throw another one out there a lot of people may not be familiar with, and it just occurred recently. So a number of these Hamas-related protesters, some have declared they're with Hamas, some are just supporters of Hamas. They were arrested because they were protesting outside Chuck Schumer's house, and they're facing, I guess, federal charges. Now, Chuck Schumer is the same guy who incited people to riot outside the homes of Supreme Court justices, which is a violation of federal law. None of those individuals were arrested.
That's
In
right.
fact, not only were they not arrested, but it was Merrick Garland who told them specifically, do not arrest these individuals. And so this is once again another case where here individuals that were, because they were serving a certain political cause, threatening Supreme Court justices, and again, violation of federal law, very clear. They were told to stand down, but you have protesters do the same thing outside Chuck Schumer's house. Those individuals get arrested.
And you wonder why these college students feel so emboldened, because they know they're protected. So they can pretty much do whatever they want at an Ivy League because they're protected by the administration there, and they're protected by Department of Justice.
Christy Fulnecki with us. More ahead as we continue live. Don't forget we do have Heroes Breakfast tomorrow at Scramblers. If you're a veteran, free breakfast for you, thanks to our good friends at Delta Roofing, Serenity Honors Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and Delta Roofing. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Rain is rolling through the Ozarks this morning. Is your roof prepared? If not, I have a name for you to remember, and that is the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, I don't know about you, but I like simple, and that's probably why I loved working with the Pyramid Roofing Company so much, because they made the whole roofing process as simple as possible. Now, whenever you call the Pyramid Roofing Company, they are going to come out. They'll do a free roof inspection for you. They're going to check everything from your gutters to your vents to your decking, and then they work through a solution with you. Whether you need a whole new roof or maybe just a simple roof repair, you can trust that the Pyramid Roofing Company is going to get you all taken care of. So when that rain rolls in and you notice any issues with your roof, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Christy Fulnecki is with us this morning. Did you have...
No, but I do want to say that sometimes I don't admit when I'm wrong, but I will say that I was very wrong about our Speaker of the House. I am very disappointed in him. I was so excited.
Republicans should, at this point.
I've never seen a bigger flop than that. I mean, I just can't even believe it.
Let me tell you what I don't blame because there are a lot of establishment Republicans who are like, well, I hope Matt Gaetz and all those people are happy. It's not like he's any necessarily worse than I mean, maybe or McCarthy, maybe he is worse. But I am so tired of the people. So you get these people that are considered the troublemakers, and this last time around when Marjorie Taylor Greene and others were talking about, trying to call the chair again.
Yeah.
And then you get Republicans that are like, it's not going to do it. It was so what's their plan? What's their plan? And yeah, I understand that. And frankly, that there probably is no way out right now. But what are we supposed to do? What are Republican lawmakers who are trying to keep their word and ran on the things? What are they supposed to do?
I know. Well, I can tell you one thing. They make Marjorie Taylor Greene, at least, well, of course, the media, but the rhinos make her out to be so extremist. But she is voicing what the average American thinks and how they feel. And when the average American family that have, both parents working and they're trying to basically survive, everybody's in survival mode. We don't really have a middle class, but middle to lower class in America. They see this, that our speaker, that I think everybody was just excited because we thought, oh, finally Republicans are taking action and doing what they said they were going to do. Mm-hmm. And, liberals fight to the death for what they want. So finally we have somebody to do that. And then you send all this money to Ukraine again. I mean, that's so basic. Why would you even do that?
Well, and it isn't even that as much as it is the fact that he said, if we do that, it will not happen unless we first secure our border, have funding for securing our border. And that's the big, I think that a lot of people who are unhappy with the blank checks that we keep giving Ukraine would not be so outraged, or at least say, okay, fine, whatever it takes, if he followed through with the border security stuff, which was the promise. But not only that, what's worse, and there was a piece in the Federalist about this, he actually had in there $4 billion to help facilitate getting more illegals in here, those that help get them in here and give them so it's worse than not doing anything to secure the border. And this is why the Democrats were so very excited and happy about it. And you just, as a Republican, you get to the point where you're like, does it even, why try? And I guess that's what the establishment wants. That's what the John Boehners want, and the Paul Ryans, and the Mitt Romneys, and they want us to just give up and say, what's the point?
McCarthy, you knew that he wasn't really going to do anything.
Yeah.
But, I didn't know that we were going to elect a speaker that we thought was conservative and then actively join forces with the Democrats. I mean, I did not see that coming. I thought he was going to be.
And here's the contradiction that has always just amazed me, because it is so clear and so consistent. Republicans, they criticize the way that Democrats historically have dealt with opposition on the international stage, and they shake their heads at the consistent ineffectiveness of appeasement, right?
Yeah.
That you cannot appease opposition. They will take advantage of you. You do not win that way. Yet that's the exact approach they take when it comes to dealing with Democrats politically in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that's right. I know.
It's not even when it comes to legislative aspects, even when it comes to issues of corruption. Republicans mock Democrats because of their soft on crime approach. They rightfully so point to all of these cities in which criminals feel emboldened.
That's right.
Criminals do not fear repercussions, and Republicans say, how do you not understand that the fact that's what's causing the problem? Yet when it comes to holding corrupt Democrats accountable, they behave the exact same way. Oh, let's have another committee. We'll hold you in contempt. Nothing that's meaningful. Yet they don't seem to understand. Okay, well, what do you not understand about the fact that all this does is embolden corrupt politicians, or which are primarily Democrats? If you never hold these people accountable, just like Democrats,
I know, that's right,
prosecutors in these cities never hold criminals accountable, you're going to get more criminal activity. And so the compartmentalization that these elites have, in which they seem to have clarity when it comes to action and reaction over here, but when they themselves do it, they don't seem to get it. Or
Yeah,
it's
right,
just
right.
it's crazy.
I just think I had to bring that up because I think it's so deceptive to run and say, at first when he went against Biden, and then we finally have a constitutional attorney. I remember Newt Gingrich got on there and he was very excited at his speech, and then all of a sudden it's just like, what is it with Republicans?
Oh, the media loves him now. I
Oh,
remember in the
oh,
beginning, they were
oh,
doing everything they could
oh,
to
yeah.
trash him. They were trying,
Well, of
that
course they-
adopted son of his. They were trying to track him down and get him to say things about him and stuff. But now, they have him. Oh, it's just so wonderful. Look how he's working
Well,
with Democrats.
I don't know if you remember when I was on city council, Justin Burnett was on the city, and the same
That
thing.
nut.
We were both the only conservatives on city council, and then all of a sudden, like in a matter of a few weeks, he all of a sudden became liberal, and I thought, you know what? It must be so easy to do that because
I think if you don't have convictions,
yeah,
it
because
is, and you want to be liked, you want people to tell you you're doing wonderful. It's very easy. It's a siren song.
yeah, and so I think that's what happens in DC because they're around, the cocktail group and inside the Beltway. Well, it's a lot easier to be liked by the media and be like everybody here than to stand on my convictions, and everybody says I'm a nut like Green. I don't want to be outspoken like that.
Well, and they prop up as a virtue, quote, getting things done. Just getting things done. That is virtuous to them.
Those things done.
And
we don't want our money.
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Like Paul Ryan is praising him. Well, he finally
I
got
saw
his.
that and I was like, that was a red flag.
He finally got his voice. And look at what is considered an insult to a particular Congress when they call it a do-nothing Congress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you have to do something. That's the definition of success. And so they get into that mindset, and the results don't matter other than the result of, we came up with something that we all came together on and signed. It's the same thing with peace accords, generally speaking, and, all these different things. Abraham peace accords were different because they were meaningful and had actual meaningful results, and that's still actually paying off. Interestingly enough.
Americans for years have been saying, listen to us. Nobody is listening to us. And that's why I think nobody can understand the popularity of Trump. Not that he's our savior, but he was somebody that at least listened to our voice, and he couldn't be corrupted.
Well, I think final thing I'll say here this morning, at least during this segment, we have more show, obviously, is it should not go unnoticed that the President of the United States has far more negative things to say about, quote, MAGA Americans than he does the Hitler youth that are on the college campuses
that's
today.
right.
And I think that says something. Christy Fulnecki.
That's right. Well, thank you very much.
It's always a great pleasure. Talk to you next Thursday.
As long as I'm not in the DC jail.
All
I'll be
right.
here.
Well, okay. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. We got Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Do not forget my recommendation to you is talk about all the just things going on and you just want to get away. We went away on the Great Escape, but that's not always the sort of thing you can do. Sometimes just a day or two. An RV can give you that getaway. Wilder RV. If this is not I would even say a therapeutic step that you've taken in your life, just to get a little bit of breather, get away from the insanity, even if maybe it's Table Rock or wherever, somewhere close by, or just out in the middle of nowhere, having that isolation away from it all with an RV, just hit Wilder RV in Clinton, Missouri. It is just over an hour north, and it'll be the most productive, potentially, hour drive that you've ever taken for your sanity, your mental health. And it is much more affordable than a lot of people think. You can find all the information, including clear, transparent, unchanging pricing on their website at wilderrv.com. Also at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show, Hour 3. Any of the show thus far that you may have missed, fear not. There's the podcast section. Oh, should we talk about the Spotify? How? No.
No.
Well, just to let people know we're aware.
Yes.
All right. So, just essentially what happens, I know some of you are aware of this. At times you have companies and they switch providers, if you will, companies that handle this and that. And so sometimes those things occur and it causes hiccups with our podcast, with whether it's on our own side or it's on Spotify or it's on iTunes. So if you do subscribe to any particular venue in which you get the podcast and all of a sudden you notice it's not there, feel free to go ahead and let us know about it. There's a good chance we do know about it, but still, you never know. We may not be aware of it, or it may be something weird on your end that we can help navigate you through. But more times than not, what has occurred is some sort of change has taken place, and those hiccups occur. And it's not uncommon when you have a company in which decisions are made at a higher level. Sometimes those decisions do not trickle down to the people that it affects directly, and so there is some catch-up to be made, if you catch my drift. And so that is just one of those things that does occur. So if you see that happen, you find that your favorite podcast, hopefully this show, isn't there. It could very well be for those reasons. Tomorrow, we do have our Friday Road Show, sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. That is at Scramblers, and then it's a Heroes Breakfast also. So if you are a veteran, you come by between 6 a and 9 a as we broadcast live. Free breakfast for you, thanks to Delta Roofing, Serenity Honors, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and, of course, Scramblers. And at 10 a.m. tomorrow at KSGF.com, you can purchase in the Local for Less Ozarks area $50 gift certificate for only $25 at none other than Scramblers. So something for you to look forward to there as well. Coming up, Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Right now, the latest news update. The first alert forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals, from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Showers, thunderstorms throughout the day. Today, high of 58. Showers, storms possible tonight with a low of 54. 80% chance tomorrow of rain throughout the day. High near 72. Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 81. We're going to go ahead and jump over to traffic so we have a little more time with our Author of the Week in the next segment, who is in studio. We always love having in-studio Authors of the Week, and oftentimes that is because there is a subsequent book signing that will be taking place at ABC Books, and that is true with this as well. So those details all straight ahead. I'm Nick Reed. And every Thursday, we are fortunate enough to interview an author. That is thanks to ABC Books on North Glenstone. Locally owned, locally run. It's just south of Kearney, and they actually, in fact, have an entire Author of the Week section, a physical section. So you can always go to ksgf.com. There's an Author of the Week section there where you can listen to our past author interviews. And every so often, we are fortunate enough to have one of those authors in studio, and that is the case today. Wally Long joins us, and I was mentioning earlier that we met, and I was like, I don't know, 7 years ago.
7, 8
it
years
was,
ago.
yeah, somewhere around there. And I was very pleased to hear that you wrote a book. And I must admit, whenever I got your email, I had an inkling as to at least part of what it was about, just because of knowing you and some of your background. But before we get into the book, which is called Why Me, Lord, a bit about your background.
I served in the Marine Corps for 10 years. After I left the Marine Corps, I went to federal prison, not as an inmate, but as an officer. I worked in the federal prison here in Springfield.
It's an important distinction.
Yes, it is. For 20 years, although 5 of those years in the middle, I served as an officer at the Supermax in Florence, Colorado. Been married for 43 years, met my wife and got married in 1980. We have 8 children now. We had 6, and as you read the story in the book, we adopted 2 later on in life. Now have 8 children, 9 grandchildren. I've been in ministry in one form or another for more than 35 years, usually as a layperson, but since 2014 I've been the pastor of Northside Baptist Church in Mount Vernon. I actually just graduated from college 2 years ago. In May of 2020.
Things out of order.
Well, I started my degree in 1978 when I graduated from high school. Ran out of money, got married instead. You know how that goes.
Oh, sure.
And
sure.
had no money, but we got married. And then life happened, and went on raising kids and doing things. And then a few years ago, decided to go back to school and finish what I started in 1978. So I graduated in 2022.
There are a lot of books out there that are, I guess inspirational might be the term, or give us sort of direction, if you will, for people seeking help. Oftentimes they're written by people that have their expertise and degree. Now, this book, which we'll talk about what it's not in a moment, and you even note in here, it's not a Bible study, it's not a theological a book, but why I think that this is valuable, the information that you provide, is because of your life experience. It's easy to be an expert in something because you've learned or talked to others, but actually living through the experience is something altogether different. And when it comes to the things in life, some people have very blessed lives. Most people at some point have events in life that are very painful and difficult
Yes.
to get through. You have experienced, I think for many people, a lifetime or two of those sorts of experiences, all sort of packed in together.
Yes.
So if you would talk about, I'd like to talk about that first so people know where it is that you're coming from, then as we get into the purpose of the book.
Absolutely. It started a series of tragedies that took place in our family. Started in October of 2006 when my sister, youngest sister, committed suicide. Very tragic event, left us kind of shaken, obviously. And then the following summer in 2007, I had an 18-year-old son. He was my second son, who had a motorcycle accident. Went through a barbed wire fence. Barbed wire fence won. Tore his leg off below the knee. Injured him pretty badly, literally nearly died. But he did recover, got back on his, well, he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And the day we brought him home from the hospital, after several surgeries, my sister called and my mother went to her deathbed. She went to the hospital and she died a few weeks later. So our family was really just struggling to maintain any sense of peace in the middle of all that loss. And we started kind of getting back into a normal life again. Things started settling down, and then in March of 2011, March 1st, I had received another phone call, and by this time I was about ready to stop answering phone. You know,
I
you know how it is.
imagine.
But I received another phone call, and my nephew in Colorado had shared with me that his parents had been murdered, and their two youngest children were on their way to life flighted to the hospital in Denver, Colorado, and did not know whether they would survive at that point. That really, our entire world kind of turned upside down and then fell apart. As it turned out, once I got to Denver, Colorado, and found that the kids looked like they would probably survive, we found out a couple days later that it was my brother's own 12-year-old son that had shot and killed his parents and almost killed his little brother and sister. So I went through a few years of just literally surviving,
Right, sure.
trying to keep the family together, going through the trial, the criminal trial for the boy that did it, the adoption proceedings, back and forth to Colorado. I retired from my job at the federal prison because I didn't have time to travel back and forth.
Yeah.
There just wasn't time to do all that and keep up with everything. So I retired. I had my 20 years in. And after a couple of years of just surviving, I felt like I was losing it. I was constantly just crying out to the Lord, so what have you done? Why are you doing this to my family? What's happening here? Why is this going on? Have I done something wrong? What is going on here? And I just, as I believe Christians should do, turn to the Scriptures. I began to search the Scriptures for answers to that question. And those answers, my search in the Scriptures and my study, became a sermon that I started preaching at different places, in different churches, in different venues. And I believe it was a very powerful sermon, still is. And that sermon, over the years, became this book.
And you, as I mentioned, you mentioned that this isn't it's not a Bible study, it's not a how-to even.
Right.
And I suppose you described it here, and what I like about this is not only, again, I don't think people, even if people have gone through tragedy, oftentimes, again, they'll say, well, yeah, but they don't really know. Knowing and without going into a tremendous amount of detail, you explain your background in here. So I think that is a credibility factor. I think even people who maybe have those questions about why me, and maybe have doubts even about God, and that knowing that it's coming from someone who, okay, you certainly have
Been there,
some
done
street
that.
cred
Yeah.
when it comes to this. And at the same time, I find one of the most common questions that is a question asked by both non-believers and believers at times,
Right.
is, and there's usually a variation of forms. Why do bad things happen to good people? I mean, you hear this,
Right.
and even I think children, sometimes these are questions that they ask as they begin to think just about things, and they see bad things happening. And well, how, if there was a God, how would he let this happen? Or how could a good God ever let these things happen? And that broader philosophical question is, I would argue, is addressed. That's what this is
Yes.
about addressing, correct?
Yes. I believe we have to understand, first of all, that God didn't create this world to feel pain. He didn't create us to live in a world of suffering. But when Adam and Eve disobeyed, rebelled against God, they brought sin into the world, and through that, we now live in a world that suffering is normal. It's a part of our world. So God didn't start it. He didn't cause our suffering. But I believe, you talk a lot about politics, and we joke and tongue-in-cheek that a politician will never let a good tragedy go to waste. They always make political points out of the tragedies and things like that happen. But I really believe that of God. I believe God didn't create our problems, didn't create our suffering, but when we are in the middle of tragedy or suffering, I believe God will not let that go to waste. Will wants to do something good in our lives. So he takes the ugly and turns it into something beautiful. He takes the broken and makes it something that works well. He takes the brick of the block of stone and carves out a masterpiece from it. He takes what's ugly and turns it into good. And in some way, and there's several chapters that deal with the various things that I believe God can and often does with our tragedy.
Yesterday we had lunch bunch with a group, and we were having conversations about a number of different things, and it was at points into biblical, if you will, and talking, and I was talking about how I've always felt that there are people, particularly non-believers, and maybe even some believers, who think that all these rules and things, these instructions that are provided to us by God are because He's God, and that's what He's God. And I say, whether you believe that or not, if you just look at it as almost an life hacks or an instruction manual, that if you follow these rules, your life is going to be much easier than it otherwise may be. It doesn't mean that you're going to escape all horrific things. It doesn't mean, because not everyone is going to follow this manual, if you will. And the second segment or chapter, I suppose, if you will, in here about why do these where does the evil come? Why do these bad things happen, and what causes suffering and so forth? I was thinking about that when I was yesterday having that conversation about people not following the instruction book, if you will, because that is a question a lot. Well, where does it come from? Why do these things happen?
Right. Well, I mean, suffering is caused by a number of things. Sometimes we cause our own suffering. I think more often than not, a lot of times we do things that, dare I say, stupid, and then we suffer the consequences of those things. But oftentimes, of course, our suffering and tragedy comes from the evil actions of other people. We can't control that. We can't do anything about that. There is evil in this world. Sometimes it just, like it's doing outside right now, it's raining. And you walk outside, it doesn't matter who you are or how good you are, you're going to get wet. You're going to get hit by the storm. Sometimes we suffer simply because there's evil in this world, and there will be until God brings it to an end, which I believe is coming. We're talking to Wally Long, author of Why Me, Lord? Biblical and Practical Answers for Suffering in Our Lives. There was something that you touched on in here that I also liked, because I think people of faith oftentimes are afraid to ask why, because they feel as if that that expressing doubt, and I don't want God to think I doubt Him, and so they almost block themselves off, or we block ourselves off from perhaps a necessary process in understanding and healing. And you talk about it's not wrong to ask why. Right. It's not. I was taught that too as a young Christian.
Yeah, right. You have to have faith.
You have to have faith. You're doubting God if you're asking Him why. That's not really your business. He's God. Just let Him do what He's doing. But I believe God understands our need to know why. I believe He created us with the ability to question and ask. And I think to ask God why, of course, is praying, which for one is we should do. We should be communicated with God in some form. So we ask God why. And so as I studied, searched the Scriptures for answers for myself, I started realizing, reading through the Psalms, that David asked God why a number of times. And I realized, well, David asked God why. Obviously, it's not wrong. God doesn't condemn David. Matter of fact, one time David even asked, why are you sleeping on the job? Why are you sleeping, Lord? Why don't you wake up and take care of me? Deal with my enemies. So I believe we get a misconception that we shouldn't ask God. I believe we should ask God why, understanding by faith that God may or may not give us the answer we want, but that there are answers. And we just need to look at the Scriptures and find those answers.
I analogize things for myself all the time. It helps me get better clarity, I feel, anyhow. And when it comes to that approach, or that struggle some people have, is the fear that it's doubt if I'm asking why. And so I think of myself, all of us, as sort of children in terms of our understanding of much of these things, and some of it we can't understand, and we won't understand.
We never
until,
will.
Yeah, we never will here on Earth
This
as
side of
human
heaven.
beings. And so I think about when anyone, I think, who has a child or who has ever had a child, those curious years where they ask you. Well, why do you do this? And
Mhm.
it's not because they doubt you,
Right.
because they don't understand,
They're
and
trying to
they
understand.
genuinely want to know. It's not a doubt thing, and I that helps me, I think, better conceptualize the difference between doubting and questioning for curiosity.
Right. I think it's important. I think it's important. That we yes, and we from time to time as believers, we will still doubt God. I mean, because we're human beings,
Right.
and we don't see the results we are wanting or looking for. We doubt that God cares. It happens to most of us at one time or another. But I think you're right. Mostly, the why question is simply to understand. Is try to understand a little bit more, having faith that we may and likely won't fully understand, but we understand that God is still good, and He hears our prayer.
We're talking with Wally Long, our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Why Me, Lord? Biblical and practical answers for suffering in our lives. And I will say, oh, you've got a book signing coming
Yes,
up.
sir.
That's Saturday, is
A
that
couple
correct?
of them. Actually,
okay.
today in Mount Vernon at 22 Sierra Coffee Company, we'll be doing a book signing from 11:30 to 1. That's on 596 Spring Park Boulevard in Mount Vernon. There will be some snacks and coffee available, of course. And then Saturday at ABC Books, they were gracious enough to host a book signing for me from 11:30 to 2 there. So yes, there will be some book signings. Both be busy next couple of days anyway. Won't we?
And I'm going to give a final recommendation, but before I do, what is it you want people to take away from this, and any final thoughts that you have?
I would like people to read that book and find comfort and hope in their trials, in their suffering, that God is doing something in their lives. He's using it in their lives. I would like to have the opportunity to share that message via the book, but I wouldn't mind the opportunity to share that message at groups and other churches or conventions or conferences or just groups of some kind that people that need to hear that message. So obviously they can contact me through my website, wallylong.com. It's easy enough to find, and there's a contact me portion on the website.
You were actually able to get a wallylong.com.
Yes, I did. I bought that several years ago. I bought that several years ago, actually, not knowing if and when I would ever actually use it, but here it is.
Forward thinking.
There you go.
Was.
I just love to be able to share this message. I think it's a message of hope. It's a message of encouragement, and a message to help people get through their difficult times. And so I share it in the book, but I also share it in person anytime I can.
So, and this is my recommendation when it comes to something like this. And one, I should note, it's not, this is 88 pages.
Yep.
It is, it's an easy read. It's not this deep theological.
Right.
And it's not, I wouldn't even say necessarily, oh, well, now I have all the answers. But it gives you, I don't know if you'd say the evidence, the instruction. I'm not sure what best term, but it gives you the ingredients, maybe.
Yes.
That you need. My genuine recommendation is that people, and I know ABC Books obviously is going to have these. If I would buy 10 of these, if you're a person who is the sort of individual that does either at times or you want to help other people, because you're going to know whether it may not be you, but you're going to know somebody who goes through something that is difficult, or maybe just a string of little things that they feel like, I cannot catch a break.
I have a friend who's going through cancer treatment right now, and he bought 6 of them,
yes.
8 of them to give to people that he met in cancer treatment.
Exactly.
I have another friend in Virginia that bought 12 copies to give to people that she knows that are going through hard times.
That's my recommendation. And a lot of times maybe you want to help, but you don't know what to say. You don't know. Right. And so this could be, and then they can read it on their own time.
Yes.
They don't have to read it if they don't. Some people, they don't want to hear it. That's, everyone's wired differently, but then they have it. You have provided them the opportunity when they are ready at their pace in order to get some answers that might help them understand it. So, yeah, I would recommend, and it doesn't even have to be a formal, it's the sort of thing you keep in your car, you keep in your home, and you never know when you're going to come across someone. You can say, I have something for you, here's a gift, do with it what you will. And so that's my recommendation anyhow. Wally Long, it's great to see you. I really appreciate you reaching out and letting me know about this. It's an opportunity, and hopefully it won't be a few years before we see one another.
Well,
again.
I look forward to writing my next book, and when I
Okay.
do, then I'll reach out again.
Perfect. You got a place. Wally Long. The book is Why Me, Lord? Biblical and Practical Answers for Suffering in Our Lives. Again, you can get that and our other past Author of the Week books at ABC Books on North Glenstone. I'm Nick Reed. The First Alert Forecast, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10, Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Showers, thunderstorms throughout the day. Today, a high of 58. Showers, storms possible tonight down to 54. An 80% chance of rain throughout the day. Tomorrow, 72. And then Saturday, partly sunny, a high near 81. Tomorrow, though, through the rain, we will have our Veterans Breakfast. That will be at Scramblers. You all know how that works. If you're new to the show, you don't. If you're a veteran or you know someone who's a veteran, of course, Scramblers, they open at 6 a.m. And they're open through lunch, after lunch as well. Great place to have lunch. Great place to have breakfast on these particular days that we have, which we announce ahead of time. And this being a Veterans Breakfast Friday. If you're a veteran between 6 and 9 a.m. and you come out while we're broadcasting live, then you're going to get free breakfast. And that is a collaborative and ongoing effort with our partners at Scramblers, Serenity Honors, Delta Roofing, and Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electrical. And, of course, we are there broadcasting every Friday thanks to Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. If you missed any of the Author of the Week interview with Wally Long, I recommend that you do go back and listen to it. We have an entire Author of the Week section at ksgf.com where you can hear past authors. And I've just, the last 2 days have been blessed to have incredible conversations with incredible people when it comes to this subject matter, if you will. And there is so much chaos, and it's very frustrating for most of you listening when you understand right and wrong, that there is right and there is wrong, and that comes in direct conflict with an increasing segment of our population who believes that there is no right and wrong other than what they just determined to be, that they are the ones who decided. And a step even further, that you then must abide by. They almost have a God complex, I suppose, in that capacity. While many of us recognize the rights and wrongs that are universal, they just pick what they think is right or wrong. And it would be one thing if they were like, we all get our own rights and wrongs, and you have yours and I have mine. But they demand that you almost have a reverence for them and their determination of right and wrong as you do God, that they are the ultimate decider. And we see that increasingly. Interestingly enough, it's with the left, who portrays, quote, religion as this rigid authoritarian perspective when they make up their own. And you see it in the contradictions. While you and I take an approach, I'm presuming you do, most of you listening do, take this approach of seeking the truth. And so we recognize that the truth is universal. So what's good for you is good for me. If the law treats this person this way, then it should treat every person this way. If there should not be different treatment or different punishments or different approaches based off of things such as, your background or your sexual orientation or your skin color or your political beliefs. And it's so very frustrating because it's a sense of injustice when we see that happen, whether it's political, which, we're seeing it right now as one political party attempts to put the other in prison, while you see that establishment and the things that they accuse Trump of doing, they themselves have done, and they're not even ashamed of it. And it's just so angering and frustrating. And you ask questions like, why? Why do these things happen? Why? We're talking with Wally Long in the last hour, and it's more about, personal tragedies. And asking those questions, why do bad things happen? But even if it's not necessarily a personal tragedy, but just a tragedy of truth, a tragedy of morality that we see play out in front of us. And when you have conversations like, for me personally, we had with Author of the Week, or you read books such as Wally Long has published, which of course was our Author of the Week, or a conversation I mentioned I had yesterday with someone that I had communicated with through emails in the past, but met for the first time yesterday. And, there's this peacefulness, I think, there. And I mention that because I've mentioned in the past, people will ask me whenever things are just so horribly wrong and the injustices, like, how do you just not go crazy? What do you do? And that's where it is for me. And my recommendation is, and I'm not saying this as a way to convert, but even believers, that you got revisit that stuff. For me, that is my ultimate place, if you will. And of course, it should always be there, but it's a good reminder. I go back and like, you know what? It's all going to be okay in the end. Maybe not here on earth, but this isn't really what matters, what happens here. And so I would definitely recommend that if that isn't a place that you go to or you seek out, it could very well be for you that place of comfort and clarity. It just brings this sort of clarity about like, oh, it is going to be okay. And so anyway, that's just thoughts rattling around in my head after that conversation with our author of the week, and again, a conversation I had yesterday with a new friend, which actually happened to be our Lunch Bunch winner. And if you haven't signed up for Lunch Bunch, I'll segue into that. Just go to ksgf.com, Retro Metro, incredible place to have lunch or to have dinner. They posted Mother's Day brunch. I'm going to plug this for them because it is fantastic. Now, this was a brunch, not just brunch, I guess. I don't know exactly what hours, but you do have to make reservations. And last year for Mother's Day, it was incredible. I mean, it was so fantastic. In fact, my mom just recently was talking about it and just how great the food was. And, of course, the folks who work there are fantastic. So they're doing another one. You're going to have to call and make reservations. But if you are looking for a place for mothers, don't wait. I'm telling you, Springfield anyhow. I mean, it just especially on a weekend or Friday night, so many restaurants you go and there's a wait. So with Mother's Day, you need to secure a place now or just forget about it. And, unless you're just going to go somewhere with a drive-through, which, do what you want to do. But if you want to do something a little nicer, and I can't speak for other places, but of course, Retro Metro we have a partnership with, that is a great opportunity. But I'd get today, they open at 11 a.m. They may answer the phone before that, but I would definitely call. I don't know the cost of it. I don't know that they posted it. But I can tell you whatever it is worth it. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, if your mindset has been focused on safety, security, preparedness, I want to recommend Brad and his team down there at Quick Draw Gun in Monette. I got acquainted with Brad a couple years ago, and one thing that really stood out to me is their customer service. And so that is why I decided to use them whenever I purchased my first firearm. And they really took the time to answer my questions. They helped me narrow down my options, and they didn't push me one way or another. And as I was leaving, Brad dad told me, he said, we want to make sure that we get you the right firearm for you. So try it, practice, and if you don't like it, just come back and we'll keep trying until we find the right fit for you. And I truly appreciated that. And that is why I continue to go back to Quick Draw Gun. They are always adding and updating things around their shop. So if you are looking for a specific firearm or accessory, highly recommend that you reach out to Brad and his team. You can give them a call today. You can find all of that contact information for Quick Draw Gun under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's some new numbers regarding immigration that I imagine you're going to hear quite a bit about, and I think these numbers are just being released, and they're pretty stark compared to where I think the tenor of America was in terms of how to deal with illegal immigration. Now, it isn't a surprise that a significant number of Americans recognize there's a problem, even Democrats. This is something that clearly the Democrats have recognized, which is why they have tried to portray this as Trump's fault or Republicans' fault. And, all of a sudden they're claiming they're for secure border. And for the longest period of time, they tried to claim that we did have a secure border, but it was just evident in everything around us, including the polling, that nobody believed that. So they've had to shift and pretend as if they care about this. But there's always been one area regarding immigration that, and I don't know, I'm sure this has been polled in the past, but the idea of going around and rounding up illegals and mass deportations is something that even a significant portion of people who are opposed to illegal immigration and support enforcing the laws they don't like that idea. They've been sympathetic to people that are already here. And there are a lot of Republicans that are this way. Like, well, no, I think we need a secure border, but, people that are already here and they have families here and they're established here. And, I just don't think it's right to send them back. Just even the terminology, mass deportation, is something that isn't ever even really talked about by those who are very, very strict about immigration. There is a new poll out that shows, however, that there apparently has been I think this is going to be a very startling, particularly to Democrats and some Republicans, shift in the attitude of Americans. And that is a majority of the general public, albeit small, 51%, support mass deportation at this point. Broken down, 56% of white people support it, 45% of Latinos. So you're getting to where almost half of Latinos support mass deportation. 40% of blacks. Political affiliation. 68% of Republicans, 46% of independents, even 42% of Democrats support mass deportation. Now, you may be thinking, well, 42% is still not a majority, but to have 42% of Democrats at this point saying they support rounding up illegals in masses and sending them back to their country of origin, that is a massive. That's separate from I don't want people to conflate 51% of Americans supporting mass deportation with 51% of individuals that think there's a problem, because you still are going to have a segment of the population that say, yes, things are out of control, the border needs to be secure, but they may not be to the point of mass deportation. They feel as if, hey, listen, Biden invited them here. It's not really fair, as much as we may not like it, that they were told, come here and you'll be able to live life in America, only to be told, oopsie daisy, sorry, we're not going to let you do that any longer. There will be a segment of the population that feels that way. But I'd say, I suppose perhaps the best way to look at this is that mass deportation is almost to immigration as outlawing abortion with no exemptions whatsoever is to the abortion issue. It is like the most, quote, extreme way of dealing with it. And when you have 51% of Americans that are at that point, 42% of Democrats are at that point, according to this new poll. That is pretty massive. This is incidentally a Harris poll. So this isn't some internet poll or some right-wing sort of outfit or anything. Axios has a breakdown and a story on it, and I suspect that this is going to be there are so many wake-up calls that should be there for the Democrat Party and the Biden campaign, that not only are things not getting better for them when it comes to the economy, they're getting worse. Not getting better when it comes to people's understanding and recognition and concerns about the border. For the Democrat Party, it's getting worse. And you can go down the list of things. And this is why, at the same time, you continue to see Democrats ramp up their efforts to imprison Donald Trump, because they know, and whether it's actually imprison him or do what they're doing now and keep him off the campaign trail, they have relegated him to meeting with people before he goes to the courthouse and coming out of the courthouse. It's clear election interference. Without question, this is Putin-style tactics. And it has been fully embraced and is being perhaps perfected by the Democrat Party and the Biden campaign today. The more that things become worse for the American people, the more they're doing everything they can to prevent the American people from having an alternative, because they recognize that they are in trouble. And if there were legitimate elections held, then it would be very, very, very difficult for them to survive. And so they're going to do everything they can to prevent the American people from voting in a manner that reflects the current mood of the American people. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Now, this couldn't be more perfect. And a further chink in the armor of New York City, they already are grappling with the earned reputation of chaos and criminals are in charge, dual justice system, utilizing the courts in order to nail political opposition. Essentially, they go after the good guys, and not even just political. You've got the veteran who served his country, stepped in to try to save mostly people of color on a subway from a madman threatening to kill them. And what does New York do? They try to put him in prison. You know, we see this with consistency. So right now, as again, here you have Trump going back into court once again today. An appeals court in New York has overturned Harvey Weinstein's rape conviction. That news just coming down. So it is a perfect illustration of what has become New York. Trump the New York Times is complaining because they feel as if law enforcement, New York Police Department, not the higher ups, but the guys and gals on the ground putting their life on the line, that they're being sympathetic to Trump, and this is largely because they've been maneuvering a dump truck back and forth in order to prevent the press from getting footage of Trump going into the courthouse that could, of course, be used by the media to juxtapose it against Biden, who's out there on the campaign trail. We saw Trump with in a black neighborhood at that Chick-fil-A, and just the excitement that those black Americans felt, and the things that we were saying to Trump this morning here. Trump, he visits with very excited construction workers to meet him. He's a rock star, these places that he goes. And it's just, when you think particularly in the context of New York, the difference between Trump, whether it's New York with bodega owners or gas station attendants or construction workers, and last time Biden was in New York, it's a bunch of celebrity 1% individuals. And for the Democrat Party to have so long carried the torch of the working man's party and saying that Republicans were for the rich, how different things are today. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Glenn Beck's next. See you at Scramblers tomorrow for Heroes Breakfast.